Can you hear me, brother?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Yeah, you just paused for a couple of seconds.
Yeah, yeah, it was breaking up pretty bad.
Oh,
Okay,
okay.
you were saying in
We're back
order
on.
for them to do what again?
Oh, yeah. In order for us to connect to all three understandings of self, we have to connect to mind, body, and spirit in order to have
Mm,
the proper balance throughout life. And I said some people are walking around here just being in the spiritual aspect here on the physical. These is what we call today sages, but they have to be secluded from everybody else. They
mm,
they can't be around, the turmoil in the turbulent world. They have to be secluded. So, but they are around, you know.
yes.
So yeah, I would say that is the connection of the Hemneter and the warriorhood or the warriorship of of just being here on the earth. You know, yeah, that is our connection. If I answered it properly.
Oh yeah, no, no, absolutely. It's
Mhm.
powerful, powerful information. So the next question is there a difference between Kushetic Kemetic priesthood and others? And you may share any kind of example and specify if you like. But I was just curious about that.
Now, I'm just trying to understand the question. So, you're saying if there's any difference between the Cushetic Kemetic priesthood to other forms of, is that African forms of priesthood or just in general?
Uh I would say in general, I mean you can go any direction you like with it. I was kind of hoping just to make it simpler, maybe outside of African spirituality. But if you would like to share within, that's fine as well. Because I didn't even think about that.
Mhm. Um, well, I mean, if we're talking about in general, yes. There is a difference, but there is a on the gross vibrational part, there is no difference. What I mean by that is that a lot of your so-called, I would say, religious practices today come from ancient Kemet. Um, a lot of the religions of today comes from the teachings of ancient Kemet, but just in a more low vibrational form, meaning that this is all they could actually take from it because their spirit or their mind wasn't able to exceed to the higher vibrational level to take everything from it. Um, we see that within Christianity, we see that in Islam. Christianity, if you look in deep within the Bible, um, they call it the Holy Bible, and that is the English interpretation of it. But the Greeks call it Heliobibliotech. It means
Mm.
it means sun book. It means sun, sun book, or a book of light. That's what helio represents. Either it represents sun or it represents light. So when you break down that on a gross level, yeah, the Holy Bible, you can, and you break it down with the Greeks calling it the Heliobibliotech. Um, and we know that if you read Stolen Legacy by George G.M. James, he made the comparison on how the Greeks took a lot of their knowledge from the ancient Kemites during 334 BCE. But that was rather a late period in ancient Kemites history. You know, the you're going back. The ancient Kemites existed 30,000 years ago. you know, or
thousands of
way more
years
than what they
prior to that.
way more than what they said, you know, that they taught us, you know. So there's just so many things that we don't know, but like,
Oh no, hold on, hold on. You gotta, you gotta. Can you hear me?
yeah, I can hear you now.
Can you hear me, bro?
I can hear you. hmm
All right, we back on.
Yes, I can see you now and hear you. Mhm.
Okay, I don't know what happened. But you said how many years? You were saying so many thousand years. You were, yeah, that's where we
We,
left off.
I mean, when you're talking about the so-called Sphinx, it goes back 30,000, 35,000 years ago. That was built before the pyramids. That was built before the Mers or the Merkuts that we refer to as today. It was built way before that. How did they know? Is because they looked at the water indentations within the with on the actual edifice of the Haru. I call it the Haru Marquette or the Nebu, but people would know it
Mm,
as the Sphinx. So for this purpose, you know, I don't like saying it, but it is what it is to people
I
to
don't
actually
either.
correlate to it. But I'm going to say Haru Marquette, and I'm going to say Sphinx after that, so people would know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
So they said that was 35,000 years ago, and Narmer, when you're talking about pre-dynastic period, goes back uh, before Narmer. They say that ancient Kemet has gone back 50,000 years, 50,000 BCE. So a lot of the time spans that they use of today in the history books are inaccurate, and
Mm,
based on the carbon isotopes. You know, they found out that they go back way before. When you're talking about even before ancient Kemet, you had ancient Kosh or Kush. You know, these were civilizations that were around. Could you hear me? I think you went out again.
can you hear me?
I can I can hear you. I can hear you now.
Oh man.
Yeah, there's a lot of freezing going on. I don't know if they want us to talk.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry about that, brother. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you. Yeah,
Can you hear me?
yeah, I can hear you. Yeah, I can hear you.
Unplug that, please. Okay. It messed up pretty bad. So I'm gonna go to the next question. So that way we can kind of keep things in motion. So for those who don't know what my is, and I mean for those who don't know what is my and how is my essential to warrior culture. Now I'm always gonna keep bringing this up because we need to know that, right? That is something that needs to be restored, if anything, and one should consider it. So this is why I'm going to always ask questions about my art. So please share.
Um, when you're talking about when you're talking about the warriorship, just as well correlating it, we have certain ethics and principles that we have to, right, as a warrior, right? Certain principles as as a warrior. Those principles you can say comes from Ma'at, where you're dealing with uh, 7 principles of Ma'at, which is truth, justice, right? Balance, law, harmony, righteousness, and reciprocity. Okay, those are the things that are associated to Ma'at, Ma'at's law. And he represents basically, how would I say, an understanding of self, right? Under those 7 principles. Um, Associated with her is Jehudi's principles just as well, okay? Which deals with correspondence, the laws of cause and effect, the laws of polarity, the law, the laws of attraction, and all of these other laws that are associated with Ma'at. Because Ma'at is basically, it was she wasn't nothing. She wasn't how would I say like they didn't worship Ma'at. You understand? She was an energy. She's considered as an energy source that the creator has implemented in everything. So there's nothing in life that doesn't have Ma'at in it, regardless of what it is. And if you look at the 42, which we call the 42 affirmations of Ma'at, I have not stolen, I have not eavesdropped, you know, I have not taken the food from a child, or I have not cursed nature, or I have not cursed the king, you know, there, and it is associated to I have not, meaning that we know what the law is in comparison to thou shalt not. This is where the 10 Commandments has taken their principles from. They took it from the 42 affirmations of Ma'at. So this is where I mean by low vibrational and low gross, where they were only able to take 10 and not take the 32 because they weren't at that higher vibrational level of understanding. You get what I'm saying? So
Yes,
um,
yes.
they were only able to take 10 of them. And when I say these people that we're talking about white people. We're talking about the Caucasian, the European, where they're only able to take a certain amount. You
Mm.
Because those 42 was for us, was for the African man, was for the African woman, for the African family. Those 42 laws was associated to us. And it wasn't until we came here we were disassociated and disattached from that concept of understanding of what Ma'at really is. You get what I'm saying? So now, being here now, we actually relearning what Ma'at is because we're going back into our African source. We're going back into our African understanding. We're going back into who we are as not only an individual but as a people. So we have to restore Ma'at back within us, and that is understanding the 42 affirmations of Ma'at. So that's key and that's principle. And that's what Ma'at is. Ma'at is within everything and everyone and everybody and everything. The animal kingdom has Ma'at in it. Nature has Ma'at in it. We, human nature, has Ma'at in it. You know, the insects have Ma'at in it. You know, the air, everything associated to nature, ma'at is within it.
So is that the purpose? Because I've heard this, and I'm hearing it through you. I've heard it through Saber Tim. I've heard it through Infudici as well. So our purpose in terms of as warriors, we maintain my eye, and if and need be restored. But the goal in mind is to maintain.
Yes, to maintain ma'at. How do we maintain it? Is by living ma'at. That's how we maintain it. So
Mm.
um, that's why we say Ankh and ma'at. Ankh and ma'at meaning living in ma'at, living in truth. You know, so
Mm.
knowing ma'at is self. Knowing ma'at is knowing everything around you. Knowing ma'at is knowing nature. Knowing ma'at is knowing the divine. It is associated to every component of our being, to every component. So
Wow.
when we go against the laws, underneath the laws, there are precepts. Like what would happen if you break this law? You know, um, so everything is associated. But they understood. The ancients understood that at some time or another, we're going to break the law. But every day when we wake up, right, we are renewed. When that sun, when that sun comes up, right, we are renewed again. We are there to start all over again. We are, so to speak, born again. This is where the Christians get that born again thing, you know. But they don't really understand the true value of being born again, because you're born again every day you wake up from that cousin of death, which is sleep.
Yes, yes.
That's why it's important to
Man.
get the proper sleep, right? The 8 hours of sleep that you need in order for you to replenish yourself. Because when you're sleeping, right, you're in a dormant stage. You're actually healing your body. Your body is healing itself. Your body is replenishing, right? And it needs that time in order to digest all the foods and stuff like that. That's why they say don't eat after a certain time, because your body is recognizing as, oh, I got to continue to work while you even sleep. You know what I'm saying? So your body's actually fighting off diseases while you sleep. You know, so technically you're going through pretty much a resurrection every day.
Thank you.
You know.
Thank you. Because that goes back to our conversation we had on the phone, and I promise I only got one more question, but I kind of got like bonus questions, but really we could just make a conversation. So that go back to what we were talking about as far as the rememberment of Asar and how we do things in remembrance of him being dismembered. But that whole thing of us, that is us, and we have to restore that, which is our higher consciousness. And please correct me if I'm wrong. I'm just trying to go based off what I've the things that I've absorbed.
No, you're doing good.
Um,
You're going good. You're going
oh,
good.
thank you.
Mhm.
So to restore that and um it's because it has been dismembered. So that's where my question was coming from. Just like a SAR, do you feel as though the warrior identity has been dismembered? I asked Ava the same question, but it's like you just reminded me to bring that up again.
Um, it sounds like two questions, but I'll answer it the best way I can. um,
Yeah. My apologies. I do
no,
that.
it's fine. It's fine because it all correlates together. But the first question I want to bring forth, where we talk about the dismemberment of Asar, which um, you know, 14 pieces altogether, 13 pieces were found, right? By if you know this the story, uh, where Asar was cut into 14 pieces by his brother, Sutek, right? And he was thrown into the river, and the catfish had ate his phallus, right? That's
Right.
why the ancients say, well, either it was catfish or tilapia, one of the two, um, that ate his phallus. So when Osset and Impu found him, they were able to um, member him, this reassemble him again.
Yes.
But they only had 13 pieces of him. And Sutek found out where he was um, before that. Yeah, found out where he was and put him in, I think, a tree or something like that, um, and locked him away or what have you. And nobody,
Oh,
found.
like he tricked them into getting into like a
Well, yeah,
casket or something, right?
first getting into the coffin. Yeah, he tricked them at first getting into the coffin, and he put him away. And then when Osset, I think, found him, I probably getting them mixed up because it's been so long. I even said, I even broke the story down to somebody. Um, but she was able to reassemble him, and the only thing he was missing was his phallic. So she fashioned his phallic, and this is where the Immaculate Conception came in, where she was able to revive him because she had magical, or which we call the Heka or chant, right? Or Hesi, that she put over, or ritual, she did a ritual over him and make him come alive and resurrected him from the dead, okay, with the help of Impu. So she was able to have sexual intercourse with him and have the Immaculate Conception. So this is where Mary and Joseph, this is where they shift stories, you know, um, to their understanding. They, of course, they didn't want that story because it was too associated to the African principle. So they used their own story. So they used Immaculate Conception as Mary, who's with John, by the way. She sleeps with the divine, have this baby Jesus, right? Which to me doesn't really, correlate, but you tell us not to commit this and not to commit that, especially associated in the Ten Commandments. But
Yeah.
it's okay for the creator to do that. He can commit adultery if he's so so fit. But that's
Right.
another story within itself. But this is the close association of Asar, where they got that story from. They got it from Asar and Oset and Haru, which were the first Trinity ever, recorded in his history. So now they say the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. Who is this Holy Ghost that they speak of? A lot of Christians, because I grew up in a Christian home, they would say it was Gabriel. So I said, you have three men that crafted that is the Holy Trinity. This sounds mind-boggling to me because we know that without a woman, the life cannot be conceived.
That's right.
So where are we getting these fallacies? Where are we getting this misunderstanding about how spirituality works? You know, it just goes to show you that they only have a limited understanding of the divine.
Mm.
That is the connection between that and Asar. Now, when you're talking about the warriorship were actually, it became fractional, you know, where now here in the States, they just like you go into karate, they got Tiger Showman out here, they got all these different these martial art companies out here and stuff like that. But are they really showing
But
you
that's
how to fight?
fairly entertainment. I'm
That's just
sorry. I was saying
yeah,
that's
no, you're
fairly
right.
entertainment. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. And it's fractionated, if that's a word, to the point where
Mhm.
the disassembling of the true warriorhood has been cut up in pieces. You get what I'm saying? And now we're trying to put all the pieces back together again to make it whole as a SAR, when once he was reassembled.